So I was actually puzzled a bit earlier. I was thinking, how do you introduce yourself at a session about your ego? So I actually will not. And can I just ask everyone to let your ego shine for a moment and move forward? It's an interactive session. I will not be picking up anyone from the audience. We will do things together, regardless where you're sitting. I'll leave you to that. Thank you very much.
Let's be friendly.
I will not be picking up anyone from the audience.
We are embracing our egos. This is nice. Look, and more people have joined us. You see, our positive vibes have drawn in some more people. We are not egomaniacs. We're just comfortable with who we are. Come join us at the front. Come join us at the front. We don't want any shrinking violets, as we say in the UK. Does that phrase work across Europe, shrinking violets? You probably go, what is he talking about? We want people to shine, as you say. Thank you. Right, we're assembled.
Okay.
We're ready.
So in the next hour, I'll take you on a journey. And I'll take you on a journey where most likely most of you have never been. So this will be a very transformative session. Are you ready for that? You feel ready? So I brought my little bus. Are you on the bus with me? Now the journey? Okay, all right. So let's leave the bus here. No, let's leave the bus here. Okay, so before we start, I'd like to do a little exercise that will reset our mind for a minute. So if I can ask you actually to sit straight, with your spine straight, both feet on the floor. Close your eyes and take 10 deep breaths. Don't worry about counting, don't worry about the time. I'll tell you, just go with deep breaths. And come back to the room. Thank you. So we're normally very, in the prevailing culture, we associate a big ego with a strong personality, with a resilient personality, someone that can inspire people, someone that have a great vision, someone that will achieve whatever they're trying to. And today I will actually show you how this is actually the opposite. A big ego actually gets in the way of your own personal development and gets in the way of your happiness as well and your success. So I will first show you alternative frameworks to think of yourself. And then I'll show you a tool to visualize our ego. And I'll explain why big egos actually make us more vulnerable. And then I'll show you ways to get rid of your egos. All right? You on the bus with me? All right? Okay. So first thing first, if you can pick the little piece of paper that you have on your chair. If no one has one, say, please, we have more here. And if you have a pen, you can do it with your pen. If you don't have a pen, do it mentally. Answer the question, who do you identify yourself with? What defines who you are? And circle all that apply. And add more if you need to add more. Do it seriously. I'll give you a few minutes to do it. Are we all good? Anyone needs a little more time? No? Okay. So, if you're like my psychologist friend Tom, this is what you might have done. He literally circled, well, there was a different format, but he literally circled every item on the list. And he had lots of things at the end. So, but there is only one right question on that piece of paper, and the question is and the answer is none of the above. Did I say question? There's only one right answer on the piece of paper, and it's none of the above. Now, before I dive into explaining why, and why being none of the above is actually an extremely powerful and liberating framework, I'd like to try and make you feel what it means. So, can you remember a natural scene of spectacular beauty that you witnessed recently, or when you were young? Anytime in the past? I don't know, maybe you were going on holidays with your friends or your family, you were on a hike in the mountains or on the beach, and you observed like a fire red sunset over the sea, and all the sparkles from the surface of the water, the yellow and bright orange coming at you like fire, or the bright rainbow against a gray, cloudy sky, or a green valley where, with silence, peacefulness, and a blue river flowing at the bottom, and the chimes of the cowbells on the pastures. Can you remember some of it? So again, I'd like you to do it seriously. So if you can, again, sit straight with your spine straight, both feet on the floor. Close your eyes and go back to that scene. Immerse yourself in it. Visualize it clearly as you can. Try to recall the feelings when you were there. Keep your eyes closed. So in that very moment, did your name really matter? Did your age? The color of your skin? Even your gender? Did it matter? Your job title? And if you had to use words to express what you were feeling in the moment, you will probably be using words like, I felt completely connected with everything and everyone that was around me. And I felt safe. So you can open your eyes now, thank you. So in that very moment, you were none of the above. Okay? So let me go a bit more in detail now of what it means not being all the things that are in that list and many more. So I'll actually take some examples from my life, because I think everyone should tell their own story. And, but I'm sure you can draw similar parallels for your life. So, for example, thinking of my job. A few years ago, I had a normal corporate career, and I had a job title. I was the head of the energy business unit of an engineering and construction company. And today, I'm leading a small global organization in personal development. Am I someone else? It's still me. I have a different job title. I do things very differently today. My day is different, but it's still me. I'm not someone else. And my nationality, for example. So I was born Italian, and by the way, I didn't choose to be born Italian. It just the birth lottery put me there. So it's not something I chose. So why would I want to let something so random define who I am today? And you know, the nationality, where I was born, where I grew up, says a lot about the cultural exposure that I had, the education that I had when I was brought up. And it might say a lot about the mental models and the frameworks that I use today. But if I don't like them, I can change them today. So why should I let my nationality define who I am? I don't drink short coffee, and I don't eat pasta, for example. So, and today I'm also British. And so, oh, by the way, when I tell this story, when I told this story the last time, someone in a course, someone said, "Are you into politics?" And I said, "No, I'm not into politics. I'm aware what is happening in Italy and in the UK in the politics." And then the guy went, "Are you aware that you now have 2 nationalities you can be ashamed of?" Life achievements. But again, that doesn't define me. It doesn't define who I am. So I was Italian, I'm British as well, it's still me. And talking about the culture you grew up in, I grew up in a really Orthodox family, going to Mass every Sunday and serving Mass as well. I was introducing every girl I was dating to my parents, and I had this dream, I had this vision of seeing myself married to a woman and raising our offspring. And today things are very different. I'm a gay grown-up, but it's still me. So for 47 years almost now, I've gone through different phases. And by the way, the transition between straight and gay was memorable. But we can talk about that over 1 or 2 beers, or 20. But it's still me. It's still me, it's not another person. And if I think of my body, well, I have 6 screws in my feet, and without permanent ones, and without them my feet would fall apart. But am I different because am I someone else because I have these screws in my body? No. And if I had a big accident and I lost my hand, for example, well, I might lose, unfortunately, I might also lose some self-confidence. It happens in these situations. But my body wouldn't have a hand, but I would still be me. So I'm actually not even my body. If I think of my identity, who am I, who defines who I am, I'm not even my body. And obviously, I'm not my thoughts and I'm not my emotions, because my thoughts and emotions change all the time. So and sometimes I embrace completely the opposite thoughts and the opposite emotions. So am I my emotions? I'm not, and my thoughts, I'm not even that. So I hope you're with me now, all right? Still on the bus? Okay, so let me go through this list. What happens? What is left when I remove everything? So I was a child, obviously. Yeah, you can relate to this list, I suppose. I'm talking to you. You are listening to me. I was a company director once. I'll be drinking a lot tonight for sure. You might as well join us. I'm reading this list. You're reading this list as well. I'm a cat owner. I'm sure some of you have pets or children. And I love life. And I'm sure many of you love life. Hopefully all of you love life as well. So these are all things I do, I think, I feel, I am, or roles that I play. What is the common denominator here? I. And if you think about it, you've changed so much in your lives. Sometimes you've done the opposite things of what you were doing before. You have felt and thought the opposite things that you were feeling and thinking before. But that I has always been with you. And it's the only thing that has always been with you. So when we define who we are, there's only one way to define us, which is I am. That's it. So Descartes actually got it completely the other way around. He said, I think, therefore I am. I am, therefore I think. Now, how does this sit with science? I'm sure you won't be surprised to, oh no, sorry, actually, yeah, forgot. So before we talk about science, just to make it a little more practical, I'd like to give you two frameworks that can help you understand the difference between our normal state where we identify ourselves with at least with our body and mind complex, and this new state and this new framework where I'm trying to take you today. So think of about when you go to a theater or when you go to the cinema, and you watch a good movie, and you probably feel the same feeling of the character in the movie. You're thinking like you were immersed in the movie. Their life is happening to you. And if it's a good film, you totally lose yourself in the movie. What is happening there is that situation of the life or the things that are happening in the movie, the emotions of the characters, often their thoughts, they're actually taking over you. Because you're totally immersed and lost in it. And you may want that to happen because, I mean, you're going to watch a movie. That's exactly what you want to do. You want to be taken away from your life and be overwhelmed, feel overwhelmed by whatever happens in the movie. But do you want that to happen throughout your life? Do you want your emotions to take over you? Do you want your life? Do you want events around you to take over your life? This is so instead of identifying ourselves with the character, we have a choice to identify ourselves with the actor. So everything we do is something that we're doing, and we want to do it well. I mean, the character wants to achieve what they're trying to achieve, and the feelings are real, because you actually feel them as well when you're going to the movies. Everything is real, but we're not letting everything, the feelings, the thoughts that we have, the fears, the hopes that we have, we're not letting this take over our lives. We are still in control. We know that we are not that job title. We are not that family role. We are not that fear that we have about tomorrow. We are not that memory that hurt us in the past and we can't get rid of. We're not that. We are we. I am I. And everything else is something that is part of my life, is important, but I will not let it define who I am. I am in control of my life. So this is the actor and character metaphor. Another very important one, very powerful one, is the observer. So when you observe something, you are the observer, and the something that is in front of you is the observed thing. And the moment you observe something, something that you can observe is obviously not you, because you're the observer. Okay? Think about it. Again, this is a very simple and equally powerful framework. Everything that you can observe is not you. You are the observer. You're on a different level of consciousness and awareness from the things that happen to you, from the thoughts that you have, from the feelings that you have, your memories, your fears, your challenges, your projects, your dreams. On the back of that piece of paper, there's a quote from Einstein that says, I'm paraphrasing it, but basically it says that we can't solve the problems that we created at the same level of consciousness when we created it. So this is what I'm trying to do here today. I'm trying to take everyone to a higher level of awareness, where we still do everything we do in life, we're still the main actor of our own life, but we don't identify with the characters that we play. And so the observer, everything you can observe is not you. So I can observe my bodies, it's not me. I can observe my thoughts, it's not me. I can observe my fears. I can observe my challenges, my targets, my dreams, my projects. But it's not me. So I'm actually safer and on a higher level of consciousness than there. And so what is all these names that we use to identify ourselves? They're a convention. There are roles that we play, there are things that we do, there are thoughts that we have, actions that we perform, but they're a convention. Think of a river. If you're a river, you have some water flowing in it. Sometimes you have more water, sometimes you have less water. You certainly don't identify yourself with the drops of water because they flow. And you have banks, you have a river bank, and the river banks change in time. If you think in the decades, in the centuries, the river banks move. The whole course of the river moves. Sometimes because the river is so strong that will move it, sometimes because external events will make it change. But we still use the same name to call that river. So the identity of the river is still there, but what is it really? You can't identify any piece to say what that river is. And this is the same thing we do with ourselves, with our names, with our nationality, the date we were born, and our jobs. It's a convention, and it's fine. It's fine to have conventions, but the problem is when we identify with it. Then we're actually adding some more infrastructure that is not actually helping us go through life successfully. So how does all sit with science? It actually sits really well, obviously. I wouldn't be here talking otherwise. And neuroscience and physics tell us that, well, I'm a physicist, by the way. They have found in the brain, they found all the areas and the mechanisms and the structures that what happens when you have certain feelings, when you move your body, when you have certain sensations, when you create certain images for real or projected, they've studied the neuronal architecture of our brain. There's something that is missing, and in the brain there's no center of control, so we know that happiness comes from some chemical reactions and the irritation of certain tissues. But where is the part that is actually experiencing this irritation of the tissue? Where is the area that lives the conscious experience of our life? So there isn't any. And later, if you want to, we can, or if you have time with questions, etc., I'll be happy to answer questions where science and physics particularly are going in the studies of what consciousness means and what it is exactly. It's really fascinating and very frontier. But this is the point. The main model for ourselves today is this one. This is me, basically. This is my conscious experience of life. This is the external phenomena, what we would normally call the external world. And we have senses that, of course, allow us to interact with the external world. We have something that happens here, and not only about the signals that we receive, but also internally, again, the emotions that we feel, the pain, the happiness, the thoughts that we create, the images that we create. And then there's something that actually perceives all of this and has the conscious experience of life. And by the way, you might have noticed that there's no direct line from the external world into my consciousness experience. But this is a very long topic, and I might leave it for a talk maybe next year. So anyway, this is the main model for ourselves, to look at ourselves and our conscious experience of life. So what does this mean then in practice? Okay, so let me introduce you to one of those concepts that you will never unlearn after today. The ego bubble. So say hi to your new friend, because again, this is something that you will not forget. So we're so used to identifying ourselves with our name, our gender, our job title, our age, our nationality, our family, our work, our friends, and we've created an identity that separates us from the rest of the world. We have a feeling, all of us have a feeling that there's me on one side with everything I've decided to identify myself with, and the rest of the world on the other side. And that's the ego bubble. We have created this image of the ego, this image of ourselves, of our identity, that is the ego bubble that separates us from the rest of the world. And but it's a projection. It's an illusion that we have decided to live by. And have you ever told lies in your life? Have you? Well, believe it or not, I have as well. So particularly when I was little. And I still have this really strong memory of telling a lie to someone, and then all the pain I put myself through because I needed to remember who I told the lie, who I told the truth. And then when I told the lie, that obviously had an impact on the rest of the picture that I was portraying of my life. So I had to change to tell even more lies. And then I had to remember again how big the lie was becoming, and to whom I said something else. It was painful. It required energy. It required time. It required emotional energy. This is exactly what we're doing with the ego bubble. It's a projection. And because it's a projection and it's not real, it actually takes a lot of our energy, our resources, our focus to keep it alive, because we need to feel like it's real. We need to feel like it exists, and we need to protect it. All of a sudden, we have something that we need to protect that has boundaries. It separates us from the rest of the world, and we need to protect it as well. And by the way, it's absolutely okay to want to protect your body from physical injuries. It's absolutely okay to want to protect your mind from emotional wounds. That's absolutely fine. what is wrong if you identify yourself with it. Think of the river again. Now imagine if the river identifies itself with a water drop. No, please don't flow away. Don't flow away. You're me. You're me. Don't merge into the sea. No, I'm losing myself. This is what it is. Or if the water drop evaporates, you say, no, don't fly away. You're me. Don't fly away. How difficult is the river making its own life? And it's all self-inflicted. Actually, yeah, it could be even more difficult. Imagine if the water drop then ends into another river. Whoa, the war of the rivers. But does it sound familiar? War of egos? A battle of egos? Okay? So everything we decide, because it's a decision, whether conscious or unconscious, everything we decide, we identify ourselves with, we put it inside the ego bubble. And we create this separation, because everything that is outside the ego bubble is different from me and potentially a threat. Think of all the ideas that we identify ourselves with. You know, sometimes we are so strongly believe in ideas that we identify ourselves then. Can you relate to that? Can you, or yourself or someone that you've seen maybe in your office, they so strongly identify with their ideas that they actually feel that whoever thinks differently is a threat to themselves, not only to the idea. Now, think of skin color, for example. Now, most probably the people here in this room, we're all evolved human beings, and we don't identify ourselves with our skin color. But I'm sure you can think of people that do. So all of a sudden, they've decided, consciously or unconsciously, but they've decided that whoever has a different color is different from them and is a potential threat. And I'm sure I don't need to tell you examples of where that mental model actually takes us to. And we would all hope that these people could grow up, grow to a higher level of awareness, and stop identifying themselves with their skin color. Now, there is a really extreme example, but in a way, this is what we're doing ourselves all the time. When we identify with something else that is not just I. So basically, when we identify ourselves with anything else, we are doing the same mistake. And we are putting ourselves through the same misery of having created a separation from ourselves and everyone else around us and the rest of the world. And not only have we created a separation, but now, again, we have this illusion, this projection of the ego bubble, and we need to defend it. And we need to make sure that nobody hurts it. So actually, we have created threats. Ultimately, we are making ourselves more vulnerable. Think about the ego bubble. Think about it as a target for someone who plays darts. The bigger the target, the easier it will be to hurt them, to hit the target and hurt them. But this is exactly what it is. The more we put inside our ego bubble, the bigger target we are making ourselves to pain, hurt, disappointment, misery. So we are the bigger our ego, the more vulnerable we're making ourselves. And not only that, the separation from the rest of the world, it's fictitious. We have created it. It's not there. And all of a sudden, also the relationships that we have with other people, we think we are having a relationship with someone. That's not true. Our ego bubble is having a relationship with someone. The relationships we are building ultimately may have multiple objectives, but one of the objectives will always be to preserve our ego bubble, to safeguard it, to not hurt it. So we're actually not having truly authentic, genuine relationships, because everything we identify ourselves with, we want to make sure that in the relationship will not get hurt. Are you with me? Can you see the implication in the workplace of this? So what I would like you to do now is I'd like you to do another small exercise. And this time you will need to work in pairs. And you can also get up and choose a random other person. So what I would like you to do is to think of an event that was unpleasant for you, a recent one. It can be in your office or in your workplace or in your private life. It doesn't matter. You choose it. But it was an event where you were personally involved, so you were not just a spectator. You were involved, and it felt unpleasant to you for whatever reason. If it was a meeting, for example, you didn't achieve what you wanted and you felt disappointed. Or someone said something that hurt you, that offended you, or you're sorry for something that happened. You choose whatever, it doesn't matter. But ultimately it was an unpleasant event. So if you can pick someone else in the room and tell them, describe this event to them shortly, briefly, and then together look at it again from the eyes of the ego bubble and see where the ego bubble was actually involved. And imagine what you would do, replay the event again, and imagine what you would do differently or what you would feel differently if you went through the same event without the ego bubble. Okay? All right? So stand up and do it. You'll only have like 6 minutes. I'm timing it. You're enjoying it? Yeah?
I enjoy this conversation.
Okay, good. if you want to. It's nice. It's really nice. One more minute. Just one more minute, please. Can you conclude your conversations, please? Okay, thank you. Can we come back to the room, please? This is really beautiful, by the way. They told me this one is much louder, so hello everyone. Can you come back to the room, please? You know what a singing bowl is? You know that? So, well, I had to carry too much marketing material and I was already overweight, so I didn't bring my buddies. Ding! All right? Okay, so they actually asked me to make sure I close on time, so I want to leave some time for questions or feedback at the end. So one thing I would like to say now here, and if you can nod, if you agree, do you recognize that the moment you go through the same event without your ego bubble, you may, you know, if you picked an event where you were trying to achieve something, you may not necessarily achieve it. I mean, ultimately what you achieve depends on other people and situations around you on which you have no control. But can you recognize that your emotional domain, when you go through the same event, would be a lot stronger, more resilient, more positive, more open-minded? And if anything, if you picked an example where you were actually trying to achieve something, do you recognize that you're actually doing a better service to your objective? You're more effective if the ego bubble is not involved. Because you're focusing all your energy and your mental resources and your focus on what you want to achieve, not on protecting your ego bubble. All right? So we go through life, and then we'll have a little time for more questions later. By the way, it was beautiful to observe you from here. This is really a great gift that you gave me. Thank you. And So we go through life with carrying around this ego bubble with us, this illusion with us, and that we need to protect, and we are afraid of threats around us. So what do we actually need to do then? Because we are afraid that this bubble will burst at any point in time. Yeah? We feel fragile. So what do? We burst it ourselves. That's what we need to do. So take let's free ourselves of this illusion, this projection that makes our life more difficult. Let's let the water drop, evaporate it, fly wherever it has to go. I'm a river, and I'll focus all my resources on being a river, enjoying being a river, and being the best river I can be. If I burst the ego bubble, all of a sudden, I'm more resilient and boundless. I have no limits. There's nothing that stops me or keeps me restrained. Think of a car. You worked your whole life to buy a beautiful car. And you invested so much time, so much money in it, and you're still investing so many of your resources and your time to keep it clean, to keep it perfect, spotless. And you love it so much that you're afraid that someone will scratch it or you might have an accident. Some inconsiderate driver will just hit you, even if you follow all the rules perfectly. So it could happen. And you're so obsessed with it that what you do, you actually leave the car in the garage because it's too precious for you. But is that a very functional way to use a car? I mean, a car ultimately should be there to take you to new places, to take you farther than where you wanted to, where you could go without it, to meet new people, to see new places, to make new experiences, to develop yourself, to grow. That's what a car should be for. And what we're doing actually is we've created this bubble around us, these boundaries around us, and then we keep it in the garage because we are afraid that it could get scratched and we could get hurt. Can you see how this limits our personal development as well? And the genuinity of the interactions that we have with everyone and the relationships that we build with everyone. So we call this a dysfunctional mental model. It's because it's not based on reality. It's not based on logic. It's not based on science. And it's absolutely fine to have frameworks in your mind that are not based on something real if they make your life easier. But this one actually makes your life more difficult. So for this reason, we call it a dysfunctional framework. Because it's not real and it doesn't help you. Quite the opposite. So you've actually burst the ego bubble before. Can you recall the example at the beginning when you were witnessing this spectacular scene? This beautiful scene where they enchanted you and you felt boundless. You felt connected with everything and everyone around you, and you felt safe. You felt open-minded. You had burst your ego bubble in that situation. So you know how it feels. Now, the one thing that is important here is that I'd like you to take away from here is that without the ego bubble, we are more authentic, we're more effective, and ultimately we're happier people. And by reflection, the companies where we work benefit exactly the same way. So how do we burst the ego bubble? And this is my last topic. Now, first of all, you're now aware of the ego bubble. And this is the first step. You've now heard of it, and it's very unlikely you'll ever unlearn it. You may follow the example. You may want to change your frameworks about identity, but you will never unhear the ego bubble. So this is the first step. You know about it now. You're aware of it. And in a way, Now, bursting it, being aware of it is not enough, obviously. And this identification, particularly with our body and our mind set, is something that we've embraced for, well, myself for 47 years. So, and we've all embraced it for all the years of our lives. It's a habit. It's a mental model framework that we use, but it's a habit. So it takes a while to change your habits. But again, here neuroscience helps us again. I'm sure you all heard about neuroplasticity. What that means is that we can change the neuron architecture of our brain. We can change any framework that we use, any habit that we have, we can change it. If we don't want to change it, some people come and say, oh, I'm this way. You need to accept me the way I am. Well, they're either lazy or unaware that they can actually change it. It takes time. Now imagine, we often use the metaphor of a canyon. So imagine what we've done so far is we've lived at the bottom of the canyon. And with the river and everything, our cows and the crops. And all of a sudden now, someone has told us, oh, there's a world outside of the canyon. Now we're aware now that there's a world outside of the canyon, so that's something we can't unlearn. But if we want to get out of the canyon, it will take some time. It will not happen instantaneously. And what it takes, of course, is practice. Practice, practice. So what is the practice? So first of all, observe. Observe, observe. The moment you observe something, you're distancing yourself from it. So, because you're the observer, not the observed thing. So observe your ego bubble in action. Keep a journal. Write your observations. Now, the writing is a very important action. Because, again, because we're so used to identifying ourselves with our body and mind complex, as long as things stay in our heads, even if we observe them, which is still good, but we still tend to identify ourselves with them. So the moment you write it down, your thoughts and your emotions wouldn't write them down by themselves. So the moment you write it down, you actually completely distance yourself from them. So keeping a journal, observing how your ego bubble behaves and record it. Take the piece of paper that I gave you earlier on. Look at all the items that you've circled. Write down in your journal how you behave around these topics or these items. Observe how they take over you. How in most situations in your life, how they decide what emotional state you're occupying, even beyond your conscious awareness and beyond your conscious control. And write it down. And if you have a clash with anyone at any point in time, in a conversation with your spouse, with your children, with your colleagues at work, if you have a clash, take a step back, observe your ego bubble, and then go into it again without the ego bubble. You will be much more effective in supporting whatever your idea you were supporting, in discussing it, and you will put all your focus and your emotional energy in the idea, in the objective that you're trying to achieve, not in protecting yourself or your ego bubble. And whenever you feel a negative emotion, any upsetting emotion, unpleasant emotion, there's some portion, some moment, your ego bubble is involved. So again, take a step back, observe it, write it down. If you do it regularly, if you do it consistently for a week, every day for a week, every moment for a week, which is really hard, you will start seeing the transformation. You will start feeling invulnerable, but not because you have created barriers so strong that you're invulnerable. Just because you've completely changed your mindset. You move from a place where you were inside something that you needed to defend to a place where you are you. And there's nothing actually else that can be hurt. It will not hurt you. And you're making yourself invulnerable in this way because there's no threat. Again, people may not have the same ideas as you, and there will be clashes, but you will be open about it, and you will, again, put all your effective energy and resources into discussing your ideas, your projects, achieving your objectives, not in protecting this projection. So imagine in the workplace, imagine an organization made of people, of egoless people. It is possible. It is possible, absolutely. Because it is possible for the individual to change, therefore it's possible for a whole organization to change. It's possible for a whole society to change. It's a huge cultural change. It's a collective change. But if you think about it, start with your leaders, for example, and start with the values that they share, start with the language that they use. Imagine having even if not a whole organization, imagine having a board of executives where everyone is egoless. Everyone is open-minded. And by the way, if you have a strong ego bubble, you're also opposite to growth and personal development because you're so attached to everything you've put in the ego bubble that you don't want it to change. If it changes your identity, so you feel lost. Even the knowledge that you actually need to develop makes you feel, oh my God, then the things that I have in the ego bubble are not right. Then I am not right. All this drama. So, and it's unnecessary. It's really self-inflicted. So imagine a company, imagine even a society where people are open-minded. They don't feel that everyone else could be a threat. They're open to new ideas. They're open to new people. They build genuine relationships with each other, with their customers, with their stakeholders. And all their focus and their resources are on what they want to achieve and the people that they want to be and the company that they want to build, and not protecting their own projection. What could you not achieve in such an organization? Thank you very much.
Wow, my head's whirring. I don't know about you. I have thoughts going through my mind I don't think I've had before.
But now you can observe them.
I can observe them. Exactly. See, I love this. I love what he's helped me discover, David. Thank you. It was interesting. I had a reaction when you were talking about journaling your ego bubble and so on. And I was thinking, isn't that the work of an egomaniac to just write about yourself? But then I thought, no, only if you tell other people you're doing it. Do you know what I mean? You can kind of keep it in your own little chaos theory bubble that doesn't interfere with that. I don't know if any of you know the work of Frederick Laloux. Does anybody know the work of Frederick Laloux in Reinventing Organizations? So he talks about organizations having a soul, right? And he talks about the purpose, which we've heard about this morning. He talks about self-management, so we talk about determining our actions. But he also talks about wholeness. And I think in the wholeness thing, what people are saying is, what do we mean by wholeness? And I think this is what you've just helped us describe here. This is turning up without an ego. This is turning up with an open mind and receptiveness to difference. This is listening. This is being in tune with you and your actions around you. I think there's something really powerful that somebody like Fred would enjoy about the session that we've just had. So I think we're ready for lunch now, aren't we?
Can we still take one or two questions?
Can we take one or two questions? We can. I think we can. Does anybody have a question? We have one here and one there. Okay. I'll bring the microphone to you. There you go.
Where do you position values? Is it part of the bubble, ego bubble, or?
Similarly to when I was saying about your ideas, it's absolutely fine to have ideas that you want to promote, that you believe in, and to have values that you want to promote and what you believe in. It's absolutely fine. The point is, you don't need to identify yourself with them. Okay, so you will want to promote them. I mean, there's some values like sustainability that if we don't do that, we're going to die as a species. So I do want to defend it. But again, when I'm interacting with someone, or on my mission, my life mission to defend sustainability in the world and promote sustainability in the world, where do I want to put all my genuine energy and focus and resources? On those values, not on defending my ego bubble.
And one here.
One of the key points that I got from this talk is that once we remove our ego, then we are more likely to be invincible, right?
Yes.
How do you think people who overcome obstacles and they're invincible and they achieve big successes with big egos like Cristiano Ronaldo or Elon Musk, how do you explain them becoming so invincible?
But it depends on how you define invincible. So you can become invincible because there's something in your life where you're so strong that you annihilate everyone else because you're so strong. So you've built barriers around you that are really, really strong. But ultimately, does that help you have an open experience of life, fulfilling experience of life, and live in connection, create real relationships with the people around you? So because the example you gave, I don't know him personally, but the point is, if you create these strong barriers, you're still separating yourself from everyone else. So the relationships that you build are not authentic. While what I'm saying is, what we're saying here is, move yourself to a different framework. There's a different framework that is more powerful. And in that framework, nobody and nothing is a threat. And then you're invincible.
Ooh, nice. How do I summarize on that one? Do you need... you have a question? Well, it's your conference. You're allowed to ask.
Can we speak about the ego bubble on the corporate level? Do companies have ego bubble?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
There's every society or small group of society has a culture, and you could also think that so the society has values, has ideas, projects, something they want to achieve, and an enterprise is the same, an organization, business organization is the same. So you can get to the point where their culture, they identify so strongly with their culture that you go beyond, actually beyond the point of the purpose of this organization, and you identify yourself with it.
It's almost like we create an energy source that it becomes a consciousness, doesn't it? And so I guess it is that. So I'd like to what a great question at the end as well there. I'd like to leave you with a couple of thoughts on this one, really, which is this is about not just what we're doing, but how we're being as well, how we're being. I've heard a lot of talk this morning, not just about what we're doing and how we show up in a kind of, deeds and acts and effectiveness sense, but like, how are we being? What's going on inside us and our thoughts, and how are we looking at connecting that to other people? So thank you for helping us go a lot deeper on that one. And I'll take us back to Gerard. I think what we've just experienced is something about how we learn our way into safety, both with others around us providing safety and us being safe in how we want to determine the world around us. So one last time before we break for lunch, let's thank David. Thank you very much.